Hi everyone, it's Susan Jones and welcome back to my Sunday Spotlight. This week I am here today with another writing workshop tip, specifically one about launching writing workshop in a K-2 classroom. Now, if you haven't been following along, I wanted to share that I do have two other videos already out. This one up here is a video where I share two of my favorite mentor texts to use during the first couple weeks of school. And then this video down here is the one I just shared last week, and that is where I share my #1 top tip for launching writing workshop in a primary classroom. Now, both of these videos do have freebies, so after this one, make sure you go ahead over there and watch those to grab your fun free stuff. Now, before I go ahead and dive in, I do mention this in my other videos, but it's finally coming to fruition, so I'm really excited. But we are going to go ahead and share 4 videos. It's going to be part of a video series where I go into depth on a lot of different writing workshop topics, all specifically surrounding K-2 students. So here on YouTube, I've been sharing some launching writing workshop tips where I'm really talking about getting your writing block set up and just some things that I like to do and around the teacher mindset to kind of get you and your students ready for the year. But in this video series, the one that I'm talking about now, that I'll be sharing, I want to go a little deeper into a lot of topics surrounding writing workshop. So it's entirely free. It's going to be 4 different videos, and the videos are maybe between 5 to 10 minutes long, roughly. I don't want them to be too long. So if you want to join in on that, I'll put the link right here. And I'll also have it in the description, so you can just go ahead and click it. Just add your email, so that way the videos, once they're all set up, I can email them directly to you. So now let's dive in for my 3rd launching writing workshop tip for the year. All right, my 3rd big tip for you when you're launching your writing workshop block is to let it go. Now, that's kind of a vague statement, right? But what that means is when you are looking at your students' writing, I really want you to try to take a step back and think about it from a child's point of view, or rather think about it from a developmentally appropriate point of view. Realistically, if I'm looking at one of my 5, 6, or 7-year-olds' writing papers and I took out a red marker and I wanted to go ahead and correct everything on the paper, I probably could because, they're 5, 6, and 7 years old and their writing is not perfect. The spelling is all wrong. There's no, punctuation, or if there is punctuation, it's all over the place. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, they are that little and they are that young and they are learning. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's been quite a long time. If I went ahead and wrote this, 10-page paper and an English professor went ahead and looked at it, there'd probably be a lot that they could correct as well. And so what I mean by let it go is I mean only pick one thing to kind of look at. Let everything else go. I want you to really read what your students are writing down on the paper. Think about their ideas. Think about what they've chosen to illustrate. Think about their story. They are supposed to be, if we're doing personal narratives, they're supposed to be writing a personal narrative where they use some transition words and they kind of make sense of their story that's all about themselves. Can they do that? Yeah, maybe they made a bunch of other mistakes. Maybe they added a bunch of different words, but can they write a personal narrative with some transition words so there's a clear beginning, middle, and end, or whatever you decided to teach them? It can be really difficult to kind of look past all the other things and all the other mistakes that they have on their paper in front of you. And I want to be very clear here when I say that I don't mean don't hold your students to a high standard. You should absolutely hold them to a high standard. They can do so much when it comes to writing as long as you explicitly teach them how to do each of those steps. But what I do want to be careful of is I want to make sure we're not changing their writing into our own writing. Because like I said, if I took out that red pencil and I went ahead and marked everything and had them edit it all up and then go ahead and publish their work, whose work is it really? They're just changing all the mistakes that I made. Their story might be the same, sure, but they're just changing all of the things I told them to, and they might not really understand why they have to do all that, other than their teacher told them it was wrong. And then they go ahead and publish a piece that doesn't look like them. That's also not beneficial. I know from time to time, if a student goes up to the next grade level and they're like, oh, look at all these published stories I wrote, when they were really just edited by a teacher or someone helping, and then the student went ahead and, rewrote it themselves. What I want to make sure that I praise is that each student's work sounds like themselves. When I go ahead and look at their paper, yes, I'm grading it against a rubric, but I'm also listening to their voice, to their ideas, to the details they decided to add into their stories and praising it. All the other stuff, I'm trying to let go. So I bring this up when I'm talking about launching writing workshop because that rubric that we do guide against, those standards that we're looking at, remember those are goals for the end of the year. So especially during this first part of the year when we are getting our students excited, we're getting them to feel confident in their writing, please try to let some of it go. And again, I don't mean, let them off the hook and you're not teaching anymore. I mean, really just focus on one or two things that that student can work on to get to where you want them to be, or at least to get to their best for their potential, right? Not every single one of your students is going to necessarily meet the benchmark at the end of the year, but you sure can show lots of growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Now, while we're on the topic, I want to share something that has helped me huge with letting it go, and that is the idea of students using inventive spelling. Now, inventive spelling is what it sounds like. It's phonetic spelling. It is what they hear and they're just writing it down. So things are not going to be spelled correctly. If you are a K-2 teacher, I'm pretty sure you already know this, and that's because your students just don't have that knowledge yet. They're still learning it. Your students are still learning their letters, they're learning the sounds, and the English language is tricky. So inventive spelling is completely normal, developmental, and encouraged in primary classrooms. When your students have to attend to way too many things, they're trying to figure out how they can even write their ideas down on the paper, if they become too bogged down with, I don't know how to spell the word the, or I don't know how to spell this word, you know what they do? They usually just sit there and they don't actually write anything down. So once you give them that freedom to just write down the sounds you hear and move on, or add it to your illustrations, add some labels, add some words, add some arrows, add some letters, and move on, then your students will feel the confidence to keep going. Now again, let me make very clear, I'm not saying spelling and mechanics don't matter. They matter a lot, and I do explicitly teach them. All I'm saying is it comes with time. And like I've said so many times already in this video, it is developmental. So your students are gonna have to learn those things on their own pace in small groups when you're teaching it, during your phonics block, during your reading block, during guided reading, whenever you're teaching those things, but your students will get it with time. I just don't want you to make the mistake of making sure every single word is spelled correctly on their paper, because then they'll just feel so stifled that they can't get their ideas out. Now I have a freebie I want to share with you. It's this letter right here. I'll put it over top of me. And it is a letter to parents, and it's written in invented spelling. So it says, "Dear parents, as your child brings home writing for the first time, do not be surprised at the spelling. The English language is confusing for students. Premature insistence that students use standard or correct spelling inhibits their desire and ability to write. We will use temporary spelling in our work. It is a great assessment to see what your child knows. As parents, you can help your child by praising all their writing. Let your child read their writing to you. Display their writing around your home. Know that as your child becomes familiar with writing, he or she will make the transition to standard spelling. Thank you." Now this letter here helps a ton. I always use it when we are doing open house or I meet the parents, because I really like them to know. Many of your parents still kind of hold on to, they'll read their students' writing and they don't know what it says, which is fine. We as teachers are professionals at reading inventive spelling, but they can ask their student, instead of saying, "Oh, what is this? I don't know what this says. This isn't spelled correctly." They can instead just ask their child to read it back to them or tell them what's going on in the story. And it just gives them a little insight onto what their students' writing is actually supposed to look like at this time. This letter is completely free down in the description, and it's editable for you, so you can go ahead and change the date at the top and sign your own name at the bottom. So as you're thinking about your writing workshop this year, try to remember to let most of the things go and really only focus on building their confidence and getting them to get their ideas down on paper. If you enjoyed this writing tip, be sure to subscribe to my channel, because I have so many more tips, ideas, games, and freebies that I like to share with you each and every week here on my YouTube channel. As always, if you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so I know, and click that notification bell. That way you're notified of each week's new video. See you next Sunday. Bye. Ready? Okay.